I'm Molly Harper with the Harper Consulting Group, and this is Elevating Impact, a series of conversations with extraordinary nonprofit leaders and experts who work in the sector. Today, I am so excited to talk with Vicki Yeroian with Podium RVA, based out of Richmond, Virginia. Vicki, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my gosh, Molly, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Great. Well, can you just start off by just telling us a little bit about your organization?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes. Yes. I would love to. Podium, we are a 16-year-old nonprofit that serves different parts of Central Virginia. So we are primarily in the city of Richmond, but we also work in Eastern Henrico County and then in the cities of Hopewell and Petersburg. Our big focus is on supporting our middle schoolers and our high schoolers, so adolescents around ages of 11 through 19, on their writing and communication skill development. So we do that through after school programs where we send our mentors every single week to meet with our young folks for about an hour or two.
Mm,
And then the work that they do in their different program sessions culminates into a couple different projects. We do end of session publications. So we'll do quarterly zines. And then, of course, we do our annual literary journal. We also do showcases. So we just ended it ended 2025 with our youth open mic night, and that was such a beautiful, beautiful, lovely, wonderful performance of just different teens from different schools from Richmond City, from Henrico, from Petersburg, all coming together under one place to share their stories, and that was so wonderful and incredible. And then we do team professional development programs as well. So particularly in the summertime, we'll have interns come in and learn with us, and we do a big team professional conference where we connect professionals with our young folks so they can learn about writing and communication beyond like school walls.
that's great. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, and how did you find your way to this organization?
Okay, so I found my way. So we're, like I said, we're about 16 years old. I found my way in year two. So
Wow.
I came as a freshman at Virginia Commonwealth University here in Richmond. And I was like, okay, how do I get connected into the community? And so I went to just kind of like a seminar series of a bunch of different nonprofits. I learned about Podium. I learned that essentially we go into the different schools and we meet with our young folks. And I just fell in love with that mission. And then, I started volunteering as an 18-year-old. So I myself, right, we're actually really
Oh,
proud. Everybody at Podium that works at Podium has been connected through the organization since we were teenagers. Most of folks have been alumni of our program, so I can't claim that for myself. But
wow.
I started as a volunteer, around the ripe age of 18 myself. So I've been here for a while. Been here for a hot minute now. But essentially, I fell in love with the mission, and then I started doing an after-school program at one of our local high schools, and being there and working with our young folks, and also just kind of like seeing the impact that your relationship that like you can have when you meet every single week with somebody, the relationship and the unique connection that's formed when you're building that mentorship with a young person is so incredible. Like I watched young folks apply for college and say, hey Vic, could you read these, this entrance essay, right? And having building that support network for young folks and seeing them, take their ideas, take their goals and run with it, right? But knowing that you could be that infrastructure and support that helps them spread that dream and that vision is just, I mean, I've been with it ever since, right? So we're 16 years old now. And like I said, I've been with us since year two. So you do the math there.
I love it so much. So, I mean, so many organizations struggle with staff and volunteer retention. It does not sound like that is a problem of yours. How what is it about your organization that just keeps and how do you do it?
Well, I mean, I think it's really just being a youth-centered, youth-led, organization. I mean, if you are going to be, we focus on writing and communication, right? So youth being advocates for themselves, for their families, their friends, their communities is essential and core to who we are, right? And so I think when you are able to find a space that you can call your own, especially when you're in middle school and high school, and like that adolescence is already filled with such hard situations, right? Adolescent
Yeah.
stress and trauma is real. And
Right.
then Podium, we really focus on working in communities that really don't necessarily have the resources and support fully that's needed. So we work in schools that are maybe teetering on accreditation, that particularly don't necessarily have, that are really struggling to even get half of their students to be reading and writing at grade level, right? And so that's
Mm,
really where we can kind of come in and support our school districts. But
mm,
also in some of our areas that we work in, there's a lot of there's higher incidences of, community violence or stress that comes with that, or, there's a lot of issues that come with being a school, working with school systems that maybe don't, they're underfunded and don't have resources, maybe don't have teacher capacity, don't have up-to-date materials, right? And maybe not through any fault of their own, right? There's a whole thing we can get into on how we fund our public education systems that
oh
we don't have
boy.
time for today. Um,
Pin. We'll put an official pin in that.
We'll
Yeah.
put an official, yes, official pin in that, right? But it's so important for us all when you see, when you're part of a community and you create a space, and a space that might not always be there for you, right? When our young people walk into our school, sometimes they see, hey, right, if there's not enough resources and support, if there's not enough supplies, right? If we're running out of paper at the, halfway through the school year, right? And all of a sudden that changes how we're able to learn and grow together as a school community. And you have a space after school that you can truly call your own, where you can learn and grow and build your ideas. I think that that's kind of what really brings people to come
Mm,
back, that you don't want to leave. I mean, I know that seeing that as a volunteer myself, in undergrad, in college, I saw that, and I haven't turned away. And I know many of us, our programs director, our communication and events director, our program leads, we've all known each other for a really long time.
I love that. That's so great. And it's really interesting to talk with you about this, in that it sounds like you're dealing with school districts that have always struggled with funding and prioritization of funding, especially with testing requirements and things like that. A lot of school districts are being hard hit, obviously, with the big federal funding changes happening, but it sounds like you all have been dealing with that from the get-go. So my question is, taking the changing federal funding landscape and where we
Yeah.
find ourselves as a sector, but the fact that you've been working with schools that have been dealing with these challenges for a very long time, what have you seen as like a big change or difference that you've been working with since you've been with this organization for 14 years?
Okay. All right now. Okay. Well, I think some of the bigger changes that we've seen recently, because you're right, we've been, when you are working with school districts that really kind of need some extra support and resources because of, inequities in public education funding, right? We have really wonderful, talented, incredible people that work in our school districts, right? But there's other structures at play, right, that leave us in the environments that we're in. But when I'm so sorry. What was can you say the question when like, what is the difference? The question is, what's the difference, between kind of like previous kind of funding and support and like where we are currently?
Yeah, like I would say, any kind of change or evolution that you've witnessed, and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There've been many changes. So over the last several years, we've actually gathered a lot of support from this federal program called 21st Century Community Learning Centers. And so some folks might not be aware of that, but actually that federal program is responsible for hundreds of thousands of children having support in regards to having breakfasts provided for them
Mm,
at school, having after school dinners provided for them, having after school program support. So, Podium, we are the co-applicants. So, we co facilitate these 21st Century Community Learning Centers at several of the high schools in Richmond City. And then we
ah,
support several of them in some of the different middle schools in the city as well. But these federal programs, I mean, they also fund like our field trips for kids to
mm,
see other parts of the state. state, they fund our college trips for our, our sophomores and juniors and seniors that are trying to figure out what they want to do when they
Mm,
graduate. And so not only is this, a critical resource for, after school programming and support, but it is a really holistic wraparound support service. It funds family support.
mm,
We're required to do, a lot of different family programming to really, again, that wraparound holistic support for our young
mm,
folks. And it's so, so important. But these 21st century community learning centers, so over the years, like I said, we've gathered support. We support many middle schools. We're literally the co-applicants with several of our high schools.
mm.
And so it's really, these federal dollars have really supported a lot of infrastructure of, how we build a culture in a community of after school support, of after school education and enrichment, of young people staying and growing and learning their interests, right? And having those opportunities. And so, what we've seen recently over the last kind of year with administrative changes, of course, I don't know if folks have seen the news or kind of heard what's happened, but federal funding for 21st century community learning centers were frozen earlier this year. And so,
Right.
gosh, in Virginia, that was like over 40 different schools that would have immediately been impacted right off the bat with access to support, like I said, for like food for their kids,
Mm,
right? Not just after school support services. I mean, how many people have kids and they can't, they work? And
yeah.
after school programs, not only enrich their children's lives, but also literally, like if you're thinking about the fabric of family, right? Like I need my child to be able to be in an enriching and safe and supportive after school program because I can't get
Mm,
home before school gets out, right? And so there's,
right.
we work together as a community to support our families. And so to see that money get frozen, to see that money kind of get cut, to see in Virginia, we specifically have an issue where our high schools don't necessarily have access to be able to reapply for funds for 21st century community learning centers. So even though
Oh,
there's like federal freezing happening that might, disrupt this current school year or the summer or the next upcoming school year, on top of that, our high schools in our state currently don't have access to reapply for funding once their funding runs
wow.
out, or have access to apply for for funding in the first place. And so that, especially working with children
Mm,
who had COVID disruptions with their education, right? Like
mm.
now's not the time to cut support for teenagers,
Oh my gosh.
our children that are literally about to graduate and come out and be professionals, right? Or need to be those young adults that are learning and growing in the professional world. And so that for me is like a really big a change and shift is just seeing the kind of threats of federal funding from these 21st century community learning centers that are really, critically there for, like I said, holistic wraparound support, right? If we're supporting families, if we're supporting making sure that you have food, if we're supporting making sure that you have access to your educational institutions, field trips to museums and cultural centers, field trips to colleges and universities. This is a really big infrastructure system. Trainings for educators, it supports community partners coming in and really
Mm,
supporting families and children. So that's kind of the biggest thing is seeing the threats for those programs kind of get dangled, in front
mm,
of us, right? Like, are we going to have, funding this year? Are we not going to have funding this year? And then on the state level, with our teen access, our high school access, but um, there's always like shifts and changes happen all the time in nonprofit like funds, and right. So being able to
right.
diversify your funding sources matters, right? But it is, um, you would think that like this is I would say that this isn't necessarily controversial, right? I don't know why we're targeting families that need support for their children after
Right.
school, before school, in the summertime. It doesn't seem like this should be like a political argument or anything at all.
Right, right, absolutely. Well, and I really appreciate that you brought up the fact that a lot of these kids you're working with, uh, you know, had the pandemic hit them in terms of their education harder than any kind of age group, really. And for a lot of us, it's like, oh, the pandemic is like in the rear view. Ooh, I mean, everything has kind of changed in terms of how we work and things, but I think it's really important to call out that like
Yeah.
the effects of the pandemic are still deeply felt, in, especially in the communities that you're working with that don't have a great deal of resources to rely on. So I really appreciate you calling that out. And the next thing I can't wait to talk with you about is, so it sounds like you focus on writing and communication.
Yeah.
Why those kind of two subjects?
Oh, I
Oh,
love this question. Oh, I
and
love this
we
question.
don't have 6 hours. I just
Right. Okay. All right. I'll sum it up. And if I could sum it up, I would say that what we're doing right now requires communication skills. It required writing
mm,
skills for us to email back and forth to set up this podcast and this interview and this wonderful partnership that we share. If you want to be an educator, if you want to be a nonprofit executive, if you want to be a biochemical engineer, we all need to be able to write. We all need to be able to communicate ideas effectively, meaningfully, right? If you want to be a family member, right? If you want to be a good friend, if you want to be a good neighbor, right? Having those communication skills matters. And so I
mm,
would just say that it's for me, because I'm a social worker, that's my background. And so you might be like, okay, why
uh,
does she love, this literacy, writing, communication organization so much? But these are the skills that we need for every part of our lives, right?
mm,
And if we can be, like I said earlier, advocates for ourselves, our friends, our family, our communities, right? That you know it directly addresses some of the barriers, some of the insecurities, some of the fears, some of the obstacles that we have, right, to whatever it is, that whatever our dreams are, whatever our goals are. So it's yeah, it crosses all boundaries of who we are, every part of
uh.
our existence, and so it's so important.
Well, I love you're taking the approach, especially around communication, that it's not just how can you communicate in a professional environment or in school, but in life. I think that's just extraordinary. I think every kid in every state and every city would benefit from some focus on that. Which brings me to my next question, which is around AI. So, how is your program approaching AI and communication and writing skills?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's what a timely question. So we're actually partnering with one of our wonderful local B corporations in Richmond, Impact Makers, is actually partnering with us. We are going to be launching next school year an AI literacy program for our teens. Across, we're going to
Wow.
start in the city of Richmond, and hopefully we'll be Greater Richmond, Tri-Cities. To be coming. But for us, it's really important because, again, when we're focused on building educational equity, right, and we see that there might be some communities that are already using AI in their classrooms and are already working with students to figure out how to ethically and responsibly use this technology, right? Because there's a lot of ways where we can use this technology irresponsibly, where we can use
Mm-hmm.
this technology to damage our learning and our development and our growth, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we're really concerned about is, okay, if we've got access to this, but nobody's talking to our young people about
Mm.
it in a structured, development focused way, then you're going to use the tools and you're going to use them however you figure them out. And young folks, are really great critical problem solvers, but sometimes we need to partner with our adult educators, our adult mentors, right? Our caregivers, to learn, right? More effective, more efficient, more meaningful ways to engage. So we are actually working right now to build a program for how to do that, right? So
Mm.
what is AI? What does it mean? What does it do? How do you engage with it? How do you prompt it? Right? How can you
Mm.
use it to further your ideas and grow? Right? What are the ethical uses of it? And what are ways what are some danger signs of, okay, well, maybe now
Mm.
we're stepping into, is this actually research and evidence-based information, or did this software service that we're just now getting that's new to us, right? Did it pull together information that might not be correct, right?
Mm.
And so just really helping them kind of understand. We already kind of have to do that in our global, digital digital world, right? We already have
Right,
to so
right,
carefully figure out what is fact versus what is opinion online. But especially now when AI is kind of packaging it in a little perfect bow that says this is right.
right.
We still really have to help our young people kind of be the detectives, and kind of piece together,
Mm,
okay, what is, fact, what is evidence based, and then again, how do I use this ethically in a way that really helps support my growth? So we're
mm,
so excited to work with impact makers too. We're piloting a couple of different workshops this winter and spring, and then the goal is to really get student input. Again, youth voice is so important to us. Get their
right.
feedback, and then really kind of work towards making a school year long program to help our young people have access to AI, have access to that support, whereas they might not be getting it like in the classroom or in other
Right.
places, right? Kind of again building that bridge.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I love that you're embracing it. I know some, programs that are focused on writing with youth are trying to stem the tide, if you will, in
Yeah, well,
terms
I mean,
of,
I will like it's not like these aren't like this isn't taking over our like let's be clear, like we are a
yeah,
writing and communication organization, but the fact that like AI is not going to go away.
right.
And so you can fight it and believe me, like I have like the oldest cell phone in the world. I can't even like or
The
love things
flip
on. Okay,
open. Does it
see
flip?
I'm like one generation past the flip phone, like just one.
I love
I do have a GPS on there. Like I can Google Map stuff, okay?
it.
So I'm like the last person to want to jump in and learn the newest technology, trust me. But my team of alumni of our programs, it's so critical and important to them for our young people to have access to the resources that they know they're gonna need in the future.
Yeah.
And so we've gotta step up and be there for our young folks, especially, again, being partners for our school districts. Like if we can bring in that resource and
Mm.
support when they're dealing with so many other needs, then why not? Why not?
That's great. And you're training the kind of first generation of students that where AI was pretty prolific. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to follow up and hear how that program goes. That's wonderful. Well, tell us this for those folks out there who would love to support your organization. What do you need? What can people do?
There are, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking that question. I love that. There's lots of ways to come engage with us, whether you are in Richmond, Virginia or Central Virginia, or from afar. So always, 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 we are a youth organization that showcases the talent, the ingenuity, the creativity, the ideas, the vision of our young people. So visiting our website, www.podiumrva.org, you can check out our publications. You can check out
Mm,
videos of our showcases. Our youth have a story to tell. They have many, many, many stories to tell. And if you want to get connected to what our youth communities are concerned about, what they're thinking about, what's on their minds, please, 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 be an audience member of
mm,
our publications and of our showcases. And if you love us and you want to support, if you are afar, we have things like wish lists online where you can, send
great.
us. We always need paper, right? We always need writing utensils. Like we're a writing organization. Like lined paper is a clutch, always, everyone. Um, but we've got, a wish list of items. We do a flash fiction competition every February, which is online on Zoom. So if you want to write with us for an hour, learn more about our organization, please sign up for that. But we've also got bingo night. We've got a murder mystery dinner theater show. So if you're local, you can come join us for bingo. You can come join us for our murder mystery dinner theater show. Our team are actors in it. So
Oh, I love it. That's
so
great.
yeah, so there's lots of ways to get involved. You can, be part of our programs. Tell your story, right? Like if you
Mm,
are far and you have an awesome story that you want to share with our young folks about how you got involved in building your business, or a struggle or stress that you accomplished or work through that you want to share that might be inspiring for our young folks, sending us a video. We've got, connect with us right on our website and connect with us and, share with our young folks. We are happy to connect you in a mentorship kind of capacity as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, Vicki, what an amazing organization. What a great leader. What a vision you have. I mean, I'm sure me and all the listeners will be tracking you in the years to come to see what amazing work you've done. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all you do for the nonprofit community, Molly. We really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Heartstrings, heartstrings. Okay, thanks. And to the listeners out there, stay tuned for the next episode.